Hello, and welcome to Confessions of a Terrible Leader, where real leaders share the raw truth about the lessons they learned the hard way, so you don't have to. Join our host, Layci Nelson, founder of Transcend Leadership Collective and former terrible leader. Every leader can become worthy of being followed if they are willing to put in the work. On this podcast, we share the messy stories and behind-the-scenes reality of what the work actually entails. We welcome you to this community of revolutionary leaders who believe honest communication, healthy conflict, and building cultures of acceptance, respect, and trust are not only possible, but non-negotiable for cultivating world-class teams.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. I am your host, and let us not forget, former terrible leader, Layci Nelson. I am so excited to welcome Amber Kendrick to the show. She is a third-generation business owner who operates Pete's Auto Parts. Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here and talk about some of my past boils.
Oh, yes. Yeah. We're glad you're here, and thank you for being willing to talk about it. We'll spare you from jumping straight into the deep end. So you guys are based out of the Midwest. You are in Michigan?
Jenison, Michigan. Yeah,
okay.
We're in West Michigan. We're near Grand Rapids, the second biggest city in Michigan. And yeah, we buy insurance company total loss vehicles, and we recycle the fluids and the metals, and we sell the good parts off of them. It's a very green business.
Yeah.
Automobiles are actually the most recycled product in America and in the world, which not a lot of people know.
I was telling you before we hit record, I didn't even think about it, but of course this business exists, right? Like, I had no idea, and you are third generation doing it. So incredible.
That's right.
Tell me more about, did you grow up just at the business? Like, how did you decide, yep, I want to be the one that takes it to the next generation? How did that happen?
I did grow up working in the business, but like a lot of owners' children, I ended up with the worst jobs possible. I was pulled off one thing and into another. Oh, go deliver this. Oh, clean out that. Do this inventory audit in the third story of the warehouse in August when it's 85 degrees.
Yeah.
Shovel out this drain. And so I ran, not surprisingly, I ran screaming from the family business. I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't want a job where I had to get my hands dirty every day. And so I went to college. I was an English major, and I had planned to go to grad school. I thought maybe I'd be an author or a teacher or a professor. And I thought, I've got all these student loans. I need to work for a little bit, pay down some debt, and then I can continue, go to grad school. And so I hit the job market in 2005.
Okay.
And my first job I got not because of my college degree, but because of my background in business. I had experience in QuickBooks.
Okay.
And so I was hired by a condominium management company to do financial statements, pay the bills and the taxes and things for condominium associations. And that's really where I fell in love with growing small business. I helped that condominium management company grow, and we more than doubled in size while I was there. Wow. And I had so much fun doing it.
Yeah.
But one of the things that happened to me, talking about leadership, is that I had a leader in that business who didn't really value necessarily my work. I didn't feel. And even though I was like instrumental in helping grow the business, I was told that you have to wait until your 1-year anniversary for a salary evaluation. We do these things every year annually. Yeah. And so I was working a ton of overtime, just like pouring my heart and soul into this business. And I could see the growth happening. I could see the profits happening. Yeah. Owners buying a new boat and telling me I'm not eligible for a salary reevaluation. Oof. And that affected me in the best way, because later on, as a boss myself, I don't let things like a date that someone was hired stop me from evaluating what they're worth and what's fair to pay them.
Yeah.
So that was a great lesson for me. But I eventually went to my dad's business manager at the time and said, I'm interested in coming back to the family business if there's a spot for me. And there was. And so I came back. I went to work for Pete's in 2006, transformed the office, and then moved to shipping. and took over the shipping manager position, replaced myself in the office, worked in shipping for a couple of years, worked my way up to production manager, eventually general manager. And I wanted to buy the company. I wanted to take over the family business. And my dad was really not ready for all that. And I went to him and said, like, here, we're growing the business. I want to buy the business someday, but I'm just making it more expensive for myself. Like, I want to plan here.
Right.
I want to plan. And he was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm just now enjoying. I've been working my whole life to pay off this business and to build the business. Like, I'm just getting to enjoy it myself.
Yeah.
So I actually took another job offer. I had an offer to move to Omaha, Nebraska and go run a company similar to Pete's. It's called American Auto Parts. And so with my dad's blessing, I basically said, either I want to plan or I want to go learn some other things, do some other things. I got to move across the country, didn't know anyone in a new city, and go be the general manager of a business that was similar to Pete's, but very different as well. And that was a wonderful opportunity for me. One of the things I did there was I tried to wipe the slate clean on some of my old bad habits and like start fresh. I had a whole new staff. They didn't know me. They didn't know that I had a temper. So I was like, I'm going to go in super zen and nobody's ever going to hear me yell. No one is ever going to hear me yell. And they didn't. They really didn't. I never raised my voice at American Auto Parts except in excitement.
How did you flip that switch so quickly? And why didn't it happen when you were at your other location?
I think part of that is culture. My dad was a yeller and I knew it wasn't effective because like when he yelled at me, I just shut down. I just tried not to think about it or it would just made me resent him. But he would yell and I knew it wasn't effective. And yet I would end up doing it myself. And I would try not to, and I would regret it after I raised my voice at someone. I would think, oh, why did I do that again? Like I've got to keep my cool. But in the moment, I would just get so worked up. And for me, moving across the country and having people that had never seen me that way, like was really good for me because I was like, I am going to make this change that I've been trying to make, that I've been wanting to make. And I was able to practice the pause when I would start to feel my heart pound, taking deep breaths and saying, sometimes I'd even say, okay, I need to calm down for a few minutes before we can talk about this.
Yeah.
I don't want to say anything I regret. And I just never was able to do that in my old environment.
Okay. So you're at American Auto Parts. How big was your team there?
Started with 12, I believe. Ended up with, I think, 18. We grew the business while I was there. I was there for 2 years. And then I moved to H&H Loveland Auto Parts in Colorado. Okay. And that's where I met my husband. I met my husband when I was working in Colorado. And I drug him back to Michigan with me in 2015. We got married in 2015. I did some consulting work. And then when my dad was ready, he called me up and said, okay, I'm ready. I want to sell you the business. Got it. And in retrospect, I think maybe it was more my mom was ready. And maybe like it was because I was settling down. And I was really hurt back when I was younger. And I went to my dad and said, I want a plan to buy the business. And he wasn't ready. And looking back, like I was young, I was a partier. I worked hard and played hard. I can't really blame him for thinking I wasn't ready. But in any case, like in 2015, he said, okay, I'm ready. So my husband and I moved back to Michigan at the end of 2015. I bought the business January 1st, 2016.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so much in all of that. The hurt, the family. We work with a lot of family businesses. I myself have experience as a sister to watching my sibling go through that process with our dad. There's so many dynamics wrapped up in family business. It is a beast in and of its own when it comes to navigating all of the feelings and the fears and the relational damage that can happen. And it's so interesting. When we do succession planning with family businesses, we tell them, if you don't have your legal figured out, if you don't have how you're going to make money on this, all of the businessy, techie, nuts and bolts side of the legal stuff, if you're not there or you're looking for someone to do that for you, you don't need us. But if you're at the point where you're ready to start even having those conversations, but there's just so much tension, that's where we come in and help families navigate just those unspoken fears. You're not just coming to the table as someone who wants to buy the business and, oh, I'm going to separate business and family. You're bringing in your entire heart and soul and hurts that have happened, resentments on both sides that have nothing to do with the business. So much to navigate. How did you guys have those conversations.
We could have used your help, to be honest. We definitely should have gotten some professional help. Our transition did not go very well. My dad and I had agreed to all kinds of things in emails. I was living across the country, so that's a little bit of a unique situation. I was in Colorado, he's in Michigan, and we're emailing, negotiating back and forth. But we had all these agreements in writing that then by the time we got to the table with the lawyers, he had changed a lot. And some of it was tenable and some of it I felt was untenable. There were some things like he wanted free health insurance for him and my mom for life. And there are state of Michigan laws where I can't treat him differently than I treat other employees. I just could legally, I can't do that, Dad. Things like that were really difficult. And there were times when he would say, fine, then don't buy the business. And I would go, I just bought a house and moved myself and my husband to Michigan to buy this business that we agreed on. And so I think we both really struggled through it. And then once we got to the other side of things and I was running the company, I don't think either of us expected the changes. He had been working for himself for decades and decades. He hadn't had a boss. He hadn't had anyone telling him what to do. And so then when I would come in with a report and say, hey, these numbers are down or these numbers are up, he would get so defensive. And again, in retrospect, it's so much easier to see in hindsight. That was a very normal reaction and that I should have been tiptoeing into those conversations. And I was like a bull in a china shop. Like, what are we going to do about this? And he's got a boss for the first time.
Let's not forget that dynamic. That adds a whole nother layer of complexity to the interactions.
One of the things I did is I told him, I have a new rule. There's no yelling at Pete's Auto Parts. You can't yell. And he would yell at me and I would say, I'm going to send you home for the day if you yell. Like I can't have my staff listening to you yell. So he'd come in my office and he'd whisper yell. It was quite the thing.
You're like, Dad, cultivate the pause. We got to work on this.
You can't change people. People only change when they desperately want to. It was so hard for me to change when I desperately wanted to change. Right. So like, how was I ever going to change? I was never going to change him. And unfortunately, it ended up resulting in him leaving the business because I wasn't going to change him. He wasn't going to change him. He went to work for one of my competitors for a little bit and then he retired and he's enjoying a great retirement. And that's wonderful for him. But we just had to keep pushing forward with a new culture. It's not that I didn't make all of my own mistakes. I may not have made the mistake of yelling at people, but I made plenty of other mistakes.
You brought fresh mistakes. So thank you for sharing that. That's incredibly vulnerable when you have to talk about it. It's one thing to talk about this boss you had one time. It's another thing when it's your dad, right? Like it is a whole
and you love him.
You do. And you have
and
this
you can
whole
hold
existence
that at the same time.
Tell me a little bit about your transitioning into ownership. How was that emotionally different for you? How was it different than you'd worked as GM in these organizations, grown them? Was there anything that switched or you felt a shift when you went from working for to ownership?
I have always been the type that really treated what I was doing like I was the owner. And for better and for worse, I really took it on like this is my baby. I didn't feel a big change between being a manager and being an owner. One of the beautiful things I had at American Auto Parts was that company is owned by Peter Fink, who owns Certified Transmission, and they're the third largest remanufacturer of transmissions in the world. I was a tiny fish in his big pond. Okay. And I was basically like, I was responsible for the P&L at American Auto Parts. And I would have to go monthly to his managers meetings with much fancier, more important people than me. And we would all be responsible for the P&L. And if your P&L was good, you were passed, like, then you were passed by in the meeting. Not passed by, I shouldn't say that, but like you weren't on the hot seat, right? And if your P&L was bad, then everybody dug in and wanted to know why and wanted to know what was going on. And so that was a great lesson for me. And it was, even though I was the GM, I treated it like an ownership situation. I had great responsibility. And I learned so much from Peter and from the managers that he would gather. He was a great boss in a lot of ways, but also working for a big company like that also taught me that I do love small business, you know, where there's a few less rules and restrictions and you can make exceptions. And if somebody punches in 5 minutes late one time, it's not a big deal. That sort of thing was really good for me to learn as well. Yeah.
I love the part of your story that you went out, you saw what else was out there. You worked in a variety of organizations with different sizes. Like you said, being part of a massive corporate culture and seeing what that looks like and feels and how there's benefits because you get access to more resources. Sometimes response rates are better when you're working at a big known corporation. However, you lose the agility, you lose some of the ability to be innovative the way that you can in small business. And having that contrast and watching a lot of people that do go straight into family business ownership roles, but have never worked anywhere else. I feel like a lot of them do miss out on getting to see how it's done somewhere else and bringing in that fresh appreciation. Was that a good summarization of your experience?
Absolutely. And I would encourage anyone who's working in their family business to go work for somebody else for a while. And I would encourage anyone who has children or heirs in their family business to force them to work elsewhere at some point, because you do just learn so much going out and working for other people. And there's so many things you appreciate about your family business when you come back. And there are so many more things that you can bring to the table, in my experience anyway.
Yeah, I love that perspective. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. You're a woman killing it, and I'm guessing a pretty male dominated industry.
It used to be. I would say that 10 years ago, it was a very male dominated industry. 20 years ago, it was rare to meet other women in the industry, especially other managers. However, the tide has really turned, and there are a lot of women in the industry now. It's much more common. In fact, like we have a women's organization at the national level. And we used to do these get-togethers at our annual conference at the Automotive Recyclers Association conference. And there would be like 10, 12 women. And now there are over 100 at every one. And it's really wonderful to see. At Pete's Auto Parts, we've had women delivery drivers. We currently have women working in shipping in the office. We have 2 female salespeople out of 5. My general manager is a woman. We have really great representation for women. And I see that in a lot of businesses, not just the women-owned businesses, but I also know a bunch of female business owners that own automotive recycling facilities like I do. And I didn't know any other woman that owned an auto recycling facility when I started. So there's a little bit of a misconception, I think, that the automotive is for men, but I really have seen that change. Even in like when I put up a job application, I get so many female applicants, and it's wonderful to see.
That's really encouraging. I just got back from Boston for the Women in Manufacturing Summit. We have a lot of manufacturing clients, and that association, the Women in Manufacturing Association, has 30,000 something members. Just amazing, incredible. Awesome. And there was over 2,000 people in attendance. I just came back more excited than ever to be part of this great sisterhood of women that are really out there making a difference. And we're growing in representation everywhere, which is exciting to see. And I love hearing that echoed in your experience as well.
Yeah.
When you took over ownership, was there as many women on the workforce as there are now at your organization?
Not as many, no. We had, I didn't have any female salespeople, I don't think. When I came to work at Pete's. And like I said, now we have 2 of my 5 salespeople are female. And I don't think we had anyone in shipping. So we definitely have grown the female representation over the last 9 years.
What advice do you have for organizations that might be listening to this, or owners that they're at the beginning phases of their career path going, I'm interested in this. I think maybe I want to do ownership. I definitely want to do leadership. What tips do you have for them before we dive into your confession?
Yeah, I would say building a team has been like the most important thing for me in my success, is building a team that I trust and that supports me and I support them. We don't do anything alone. And to have people with you that I treated every project I've ever done as my baby. My team does that too. And I really think of them as equals. Yes. My management team has been with me for years, and they care about this business just like I do. They treat it like it's their business. And I can't tell you how important that is. I think when we really value people and their input, we give people the dignity to make mistakes and try out their ideas. Something that my dad did right with me
Mm-hmm.
is he gave me rope to play with and to see what happened. And there were
Yep.
failures,
Oh, yeah.
I had ideas that did not work out and were not profitable. And then he would say, see, I told you so. And then in turn, I hope I give my management team
Yeah.
leeway to make their own mistakes and do their own things. And I don't always think that they have the best idea. And then sometimes it turns out, you know what, their idea was the best idea.
Yeah.
And sometimes it turns out that one wasn't the best one. But
Right.
we all have to learn and grow. And we can't do it alone. We have to do it with people and in community.
You can't grow a business and have impact if you don't learn how to do that. We cannot do it all.
And when I replace myself in a task, the person who does it doesn't need to do it as well as I did it. They need to do it as well as it needs to be done. I think a lot of people get attached to, oh, this has to be done this perfect way because I did this way. No, somebody else's might do it 90% of how you did it. And that's good enough so that you can free up your time to go do something else. If you hold all these things in, then you don't have the capacity to go do other things. And it's okay that it's not being done exactly how you did it.
And eventually, as they become masters of it, they're going to do it better than us, right?
When you give them the freedom to make good choices.
Eventually, they're the ones saying, I think that's not the right way. And you're deferring immediately because you're like, oh, I haven't touched that for so long. You've got more experience than I do. I love that your take on building a team and giving people the freedom to almost have an entrepreneurial approach versus they're not the entrepreneur, but they're growing their own thing within your business and it's benefiting both of you, right? Taking that ownership of, oh, this is my baby and I have enough freedom to actually feel like it's my baby and grow it inside of this company. That is a beautiful thing and attracts a lot of just killers when it comes to teammates. They're really fun to watch explode and grow as teammates. They're a challenge for us typically as leaders because you in some aspects have a mini version of yourself. And entrepreneurs are notoriously, we're terrible people to try to manage. Just look at your dad. So we're not easy. But when you can really tap into that, wow, so powerful. Learning these lessons probably did not come without some pain, without some tears, without some mistakes that you look back at yourself and just cringe. It is your turn. Tell us, Amber, step into the confessional. What story do you have to share today?
I hope that this isn't anticlimactic because I couldn't really think of one big cringe moment. But what really sticks out to me is my communication, my over communication and my under communication. So I have kind of two sides of the coin, kind of two stories to share with you. One is on over communication. So right after I bought the business, I come in gunslinging. Oh, we're going to do so much. We're going to grow this. We're going to, grow that. One of my salespeople in particular, we sell about 10% of our used auto parts to individuals. We sell about 40% of our used auto parts to body shops and garages that are local in our area. And then we sell about 50% of our auto parts to other salvage yards like us, other facilities similar to us, but all over the country that are supplying like bigger markets than we are. So a lot of our parts are getting shipped out to Chicago or Dallas or New York. And I had a salesperson who was really strong in yard to yard sales, weak in the local market sales. And I had came in and just made all kinds of bold statements about how we're going to play to your strengths and we're going to develop these yard to yard sales. We're going to grow. I'm going to help you grow. People have said that those are the easy sales, but I know that you've got good relationships and I'm going to help you do that. And I had all these other things to do. And I'm focused on inventory acquisition and quality control and growing the local market and new delivery routes. And I didn't even think about this conversation that I'd had with the salesperson and all these promises that I'd made. And to me, these were just like great ideas and that they were just as much his responsibility to take and run with as they were mine. And what I didn't realize is that in his mind, I had made him a bunch of promises that then I didn't keep and that he came to resent me for. And for months that festered and I didn't even realize it. I had blinders on. I'm looking at this and he's back here going, oh, sure. She said this and she said that and she's not doing it. And I think I did a lot of that as an entrepreneur. I have a lot of ideas and I'm firing them off. And that's okay to do in the right setting with the right people, with your management team. prefaces like these
Yes.
are options and ideas, and we don't necessarily need to do this, but these are some things to think about and explore. As a young business owner, I shot my mouth off a lot. I think it came back to bite me. I know it did when the salesperson finally exploded. I felt terrible. I hardly even remembered the conversation I had.
Right.
But as a business owner, your word carries weight. And
Yeah.
somebody might remember that forever.
Yeah, they are holding on to it. They are planning their future. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, positive and negative. And then on the other side of that coin, after I came into the business, my management team and I, we were like, we are going to grow. We are going to push. We're going to do more. We had been processing like 90 vehicles a month. We made goals. We are going to push it up to 200. And I would keep everybody in the company abreast of where we were on our goal. Here's where we are. Here's our projected. Start churning and burning. We're increasing production like crazy. And as almost everyone in business knows, during the growth phase, you're often not profitable. But then once you level out, then that's where the profits come in. So we stabilize, and we're stabilized at 200 cars a month, and we're doing great. We have more employees. We have more sales. We have all these new processes in place. Things are going well. However, at the end of this time period, we're looking back at the books and we're going, we have 8 acres. We can hold 800 cars. And so we used to turn our inventory over every 9, 10 months. Now we're turning our inventory over every 2 months.
Wow.
And we have that much less time to sell parts on the vehicle.
Yeah.
The vehicles sit in our yard. We do put engines and transmissions, axles in the warehouse, but the doors stay on the car until they're sold.
Okay.
So if those doors, if you dismantle 25 cars, you have to crush 25 cars. And now those doors are crushed. You also have duplication going on. So we might have 2 of those 2018 F-150 driver's doors before. Now we have 4. But maybe we only had the market for 2. So we're not selling everything we're producing. So we look at the end of the day, then we're producing so much more. Our sales are up, our production numbers are up, but where is the bottom line? So where's profit? Looks like we're making the same amount we were when we were doing half as much work. When we had less headaches, when we had less employees calling in sick, when we had less to juggle, right? We're making the same amount of money. And so as a management team, we decide, you know what, we're going to scale back. We're not going to go all the way back, but we're going to scale back. We're going to find a sweet spot of profitability and productivity. We're going to keep the very best employees and we're going to nurture those people. And we're going to make this business as productive and as profitable as we can instead of making it as big as we can. We didn't really communicate that to the employees, you know? Here, what we had been saying is we're going to do 125 cars. We're going to do 175. We're going to do 200. Now we're saying like, great job, you guys. We hit our sales goal, but now we're not communicating about production. Now, when a dismantler quits, we don't replace them. When we have a part tech calling in sick, we let them go. We don't replace them. We move somebody in the office to part time, but we're not communicating to people like these are strategic moves that are good for the business. The unspoken thing here is what people assumed was that the business was struggling. The business was not struggling. The business had never been doing better. So we've done Christmas bonuses every year since I bought the business. I come around with the Christmas bonuses. And I give out the biggest Christmas bonuses that we'd given to date since I bought the business. And people were shocked and thought, I didn't know if I'd get a Christmas bonus this year with all the reductions. And I was like, oh, we just had our most profitable year. But I didn't communicate that properly. Under communication was just as much of a misstep as over communication.
100%.
And sharing with people like what's going on, why we're doing what we're doing, what the plan is. I need to be very mindful of giving people reality, actually sharing with them what is happening so that they know. Like I knew that we were processing less vehicles on purpose, but they didn't.
And they created their own narratives that weren't true.
Like we all do. We all fill in the blanks, right?
We're humans. We're going to do that. That's how we've evolved as a species. That's what we do. We create our own meaning if it's not given to us. So we better figure out that communication effectively. Hopefully this didn't happen to you, but the experience can then result in the very people that you're wanting to nurture and hold on to and take with you on this journey as you've made this shift. And they don't know what's happening. They're looking for other jobs because they have decided this is scary. I got to take care of myself and my family. I don't know what's going on. So I'm out. And you're losing the very people that you're like imagining are going to help carry this forward. So cannot agree with your learned lesson there more of no, you have to be very intentional. And you're right. It's an art, finding the balance of you can't just shoot ideas out there the way that you do when you're with just your smaller team or you're having drinks with another business owner and you're just sharing the ideas of what's going on. But yeah, that is an incredible lesson that you shared with us.
Oh, thank you.
You. Thank you for that. And gosh, I feel like we just scratched the surface. I want to let you go have your life and live your day. But I also know you have a whole sobriety story. As I said, drinks. I was like, she probably doesn't do that anymore. No, I come from a family of people in recovery. And so I just have this whole other discussion I'd love to have with you if you'd ever want to come back and talk about.
I would love to come back. Yeah.
That. Thank you. I would absolutely love to learn more about that part, like that human part of the journey. I'm also on the board of a recovery center. So I have so many questions about diving into that. And anyone who's willing to share that vulnerable piece of their journey is, we're having you back, Amber, if you're agreeing to it.
That sounds, this has been wonderful.
Likewise, mutual feeling. I'm loving learning from you. I was literally taking notes, for myself, selfishly, while you were talking. So thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your journey, sharing what you've learned. Is there any one thing you want to share with our listeners?
I suppose it would just be the mindful piece. I think that's something that runs through this from the beginning of my journey, where I had to learn how to practice the pause, to when I was over communicating or under communicating, taking some extra time. I think as an entrepreneur, I'm a bold person. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are bold. And so we make moves.
Yep.
And we're not afraid to jump in. And then it's even more important for us to step back and be mindful of what we say and what we do and how we say it and how we do it. It's really easy for me to gloss over that stuff. It's really hard for me to practice being mindful. And it is a practice. And when I get out of practice, I get bad at it again. And then I have to practice it again.
Yes, absolutely. Resonated with that very strongly. So thank you for that. If people want to find you, if they're like, this woman's incredible, I want to learn more about her, I want to learn more about her business, or they're like, I want to work for her at some point, how do they find you? We'll drop everything in the show notes, but what's the best way to connect with you?
My website is petesauto.net, and that's where you can buy car parts and read more about Pete's Auto Parts. And you can find us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all that as well.
Thank you. Listeners, go find this woman. She's got so much to share, so much to give. Amber, thank you for being on our show today. And until next time, friends, go manage like a leader.
Thanks for being part of this community of revolutionary leaders who believe honest communication, healthy conflict, and building cultures of acceptance, respect, and trust are not only possible, but non-negotiable for cultivating world-class teams. If one-to-one coaching, engaging workshops, or strategic planning that is actually useful are anything that interests you, make sure to head over to transcendleadershipcollective.com to check out our free resources. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is hosted by Layci Nelson and produced by Mary Scott. Music is by Leif Olson and Mary Scott from the band The Number of Months. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a review. And until next time, go manage like a leader.